My next brief upload for today is with regard to matters that are requiring me to blow my own trumpet, simply due to people being really disrespectful and being very defamatory and slanderous, and especially with regard to people taking liberties with regard to matters where they have not been welcome. So, as I've mentioned, there's been constitutional law, humanitarian law, and there have been regents law and royal patronage law of my hereditary that I have to keep reiterating due to the short-mindedness of the individuals that have forgotten the fruits of my labour that I commenced in earnest in 2017-2018. My preparation for all this work began long before then, over a decade ago, and the reason I'm uploading and sharing at this very moment is because there are liabilities and threats to society, hazards to life in my proximity where they shouldn't be. So I'm going to be very, very clear about how the past 2-3 years, the legislative developments of recent days, months, year or so have culminated as a consequence of my good work. So as a universal avatar, as a universal light worker, as a grandmaster, and as a recovery advocate, I set about cleansing society in the with the objective of the war against drugs. So from Tralee, County Kerry, there was a fantastic amount of positive growth of developments that have been fortuitous for human development, human progress and humanity. There were very serious issues with regard to matters that aren't very suitable for discussing online, but that caused very serious sicknesses in addiction and in people's home lives and family lives, and that caused very serious amount of damages with theft and fraud, and these people are still causing problems in society for me. Now, they did not have any reparations for their offences of over 10 years ago from 2006, and they're still repeating offences, and they're still being really disrespectful of the law, and they shouldn't be in my proximity whatsoever. So there have been hazards to life, and as a recovery advocate working on behalf of the war against drugs, my work has been very successful, and there has been humanitarian developments before COVID, after COVID-19, as a consequence of my personal experience and initiatives that arose from my personal experience. So the abuses of my rights that are occurring at the moment are very dangerous, not only from my perspective as a royal, but also from my perspective as a legislator and a humanitarian. The individuals that have been short-minded about the bad malice that has been throughout society, and these people still having an input in more offences against royalty, is very dangerous. The fact that they're trespassing on my property and discussing my property is really insulting and dangerous, and the fact that they have been of offences since 2006 is really a very serious threat to young women's lives that I'm highly concerned about. So the fellowship is aware of all of my good work and aware of the repeat offences that are occurring in this community, and the disrespect that people power that aren't respecting the laws that be are displaying against a humanitarian of royal patronage. So anyway, the big recovery from my work that commenced 2018-2019 wasn't just with regard to the war on drugs. It was also with regard to a lot of financial corruption that was occurring, and these individuals that have been of worse offences against this person and my child are still loose liabilities in society, and I'm still awaiting the Honourable Government and the European Court of Human Rights to contact me with regard to the injustice, discrimination and inequality I'm experiencing. So there's a very serious issue with people being in my proximity that aren't helpful to human rights. There's a very serious issue about individuals in my proximity that aren't acting in the best interests of civil society and royal patronage. And as we're all aware, there have been artificial developments as a consequence of these liabilities in society. We already know who they are. We know who the individuals were. That is a matter that has already been dealt with. We already know who's damaged nature and wildlife, and there are individuals that are liable for damages to sacred fragments of my life, body and spiritual experience that are violating the Declaration of Human Rights. There's a very dangerous issue going on. There's a very dangerous abuse of power. There's a very huge distortion that's very malignant. It's poisonous. It's not setting a good example for young humanitarians. So those in my proximity that aren't in the best interest of the Declaration or the Constitution and not respecting royalty, I'd appreciate you reminding yourselves of matters prior to COVID-19, when recovery was just starting with my work that I commenced single-handedly on my own.